Friday, America. Welcome to it. As you may have heard me say one or maybe a million times, if you listen to me on the radio, I am the host of the third most listened to talk radio show in the country. Strangely, I'm kind of proud of that. And generally speaking, I'm proud of the work that I do every day, and I'm proud of my industry. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes or there are no boneheaded talk show hosts. There are a lot of stupid ones out there, and I include myself in that bunch once in a while. But talk radio is the closest thing that we have to an actual national public dialogue, and it needs to be protected. Here's the point tonight. Talk radio has taken on the Democrats. It is currently taking on the Republicans. And Congress, Barack Obama, and now some Republicans may be trying to take on talk radio. In case you don't remember the fairness doctrine, you might want to refresh your memory, because it could be back, and back with a vengeance. And here's how I got there. First things first, yes, I'm a conservative. Yes, I talk about politics on my show. But don't be fooled. I don't have a political agenda except my version of what I believe is true. I am not an advocate. I'm not telling you, call your congressman. I'm just telling you what I see is coming our way. I really view myself as an entertainer and a businessman. It is an election year, so I'm talking politics. Just as likely as I am to talk about American Idol when that's huge, or the latest Michael Bublé CD, or my favorite $90 chocolate cake from Allen Brothers. Whatever people are talking about, I'm talking about. More than anything. When Americans are talking about an issue of the day, that's what good talk radio is on. And today it's politics. It's a good thing, right? Shouldn't that be the way America works? It's capitalism. I guess that all depends on who you might ask. The myth of talk radio is that it is a right-wing propaganda machine for the GOP. Now, don't get me wrong, some shows are. But if critics bothered to listen to the shows that are successful, they would hear just as much criticism for the failings of the Bush presidency as any of us had for Bill Clinton. We are not puppets for the Republicans. At least I ain't. And that now has some in Congress real cranky. Republican Representative Lindsey Graham called us loud folks. And former Senator Trent Lott said, we're a problem. Really, Senator? So what are you going to do about it? Well, people like Barack Obama say they want to return balance to the American airwaves, just like they did in the good old days of 1949. I believe that's a conveniently worded call for the return of the fairness doctrine. That was a dictatorial federal mandate that forced regulations on broadcasters and forced ideas on listeners. Any kind of freedom of consumption was gone. It was un-American, and it has no place in a free society. So tonight, here's what you need to know. Politicians are rarely enlightened. They're usually petty and vindictive, and they will use their federal power to settle personal scores. Take it from me. The only agenda of talk radio that is profitable is to make a profit. I can't speak for anybody else, but I am a businessman and an entertainer in that order. We cannot let Congress or candidates make you believe lies to the contrary. We must never allow Uncle Sam to act as Big Brother by controlling the airwaves. Who will lose their free speech after we do? Representative Jeff Flake is a Republican from Arizona. Dan Patrick is a talk radio show host from KSEV in Houston, and also a Texas state senator. Let me start with you, Jeff. First of all, real quick in 15, 20 seconds, recap America's memory of the fairness doctrine and what it was.
Well, it was brought in, as you mentioned, in the late 40s, and it basically said that if you have conservative talk, you have to balance it with something else on the other side. And what it means in the end is that the radio stations, television stations, and others simply can't do all the monitoring and the paperwork to go along with it. And so it just means that you squelch debate all over.
Yeah, I remember.
There will just be no effective talk radio at all.
I remember doing the paperwork. I got into radio in 1979. I remember the paperwork. I remember the nightmare that it was, and it was an absolute infringement of freedom of speech. The system tried to balance itself out with Air America, and Dan, you remember how much America wanted to hear that other point of view on AM talk radio. It didn't exist.
Didn't exist. First of all, I've never found a liberal who's entertaining, Glenn, as part of the problem, because our business is about not only information, but it's about entertainment. You're entertaining. Rush is entertaining. The popular talk stations and talk hosts are entertaining. And you have to have the freedom to entertain. You have to have the freedom to talk about what you feel passionate about. And so how would you conduct your show, or how would I conduct mine, if I'm talking about an issue for 20 minutes? Do I then have to give the other side 20 minutes? And who is the other side? I mean, who do I select to come in and balance what I said? This would be the ruination of talk radio and the end of what I call the electronic town hall. That's what really talk radio is. It has brought Americans all across the country together to say, we have this same common belief. We share this opinion. We want to be motivated to create action, to bring about change in our government. And what I find fascinating, Glenn, is that the Republicans loved us when all we did was criticize Democrats, but then the Republicans got in control. And I'm a Republican conservative senator, so I can say this from both angles. But the Republicans loved us until we started criticizing those in control, which were the Republicans. So now they don't like us either anymore.
Jeff, I tell you, after the election, I think it was in 2004, I started to say, we have got to dissever ourselves as an industry from the GOP. I believe that a lot of Republicans were doing the right thing, including George Bush, until he started selling us down the river with prescription drugs and everything else. And I didn't lose my values. The Republicans just became Democrats to me. Why is it that all of a sudden we're very unpopular for doing exactly the same thing that we did when the Democrats were in power, and we were just going after Democrats, when we now speak our view that, wait a minute, the Republicans have given us a shaft. Why are the Republicans coming after talk radio now?
I can tell you, anyone who says that talk radio is always lined up with where Republicans are just doesn't listen to talk radio or watch television. It simply hasn't been the case.
Yeah, but you have Senator Graham coming after us now. You have what's his name from Texas, the former senator came out that also said talk radio is causing real trouble.
No, as you mentioned, you have to answer to the marketplace. That's who you have to answer to, and so there's very little time for any other kind of agenda, or you'll find yourself out of work. So. You've got to do what sells and what people listen to, and that's far better than having politicians decide what people ought to hear. Barack
Obama has in his platform that he wants to bring balance to the media and remind broadcasters that they have to bring balance to the media, etc., etc. I think this is code language for the Fairness Doctrine. I think that McCain is so upset that Rush Limbaugh and me and Sean Hannity, everybody else has spoken our minds about him. I think he would easily sign some sort of fairness doctrine. Jeff, you're from Arizona. I'm sure you know Senator McCain. Do you believe that he would support the fairness doctrine?
I do know him. I know him well, and he would not. He is a sponsor of the Broadcaster Freedom Act that a lot of us in Congress are sponsoring, to say that the FEC cannot come back and institute the fairness doctrine. We in Congress have had a couple of votes recently where we've put it on the floor as an amendment to an appropriation bill. And most Democrats did oppose our amendment to prohibit the FEC from coming in and doing it. John McCain is actually a sponsor of the Broadcaster Freedom Act. So,
Dan, now that talk radio has made it very clear that, I love it when the media said that we were puppets of the GOP. Right. Nobody in the media.
We knew better, didn't we?
Yeah, I know.
We in the business knew better.
I know. And nobody in the media is now reporting the irony here that when talk radio goes after the GOP, and they go after him just as hard as they did Bill Clinton, they're left with no friends. So here you are, a state senator, talk radio host, an owner of a talk radio station.
Yes.
You've got no friends left.
No.
Where does talk radio go?
Well, and I want to go back to one point, Glenn. What we would lose would be accountability. Because one thing that I love about talk radio, and I've done television as a television anchor, but no one could call me in the middle of my newscast and interrupt me and say, "Excuse me, Dan, you didn't quite get that story right." We are not only holding politicians and the New York Times and the Washington Post and everyone else accountable, big business, but we're accountable. We're the most accountable people in the media, because if you say something on the air that is wrong, you'll get a call in 30 seconds to correct you. If you are out of touch with your audience, they will let you know. As an elected official in Texas, as a senator, I'm under the microscope more than any other elected official, maybe in the United States, because I'm on the air every day for 2 hours, and people can call me in and say, Dan or Senator, what about this? I believe in accountability, and what talk radio is great about is we hold people accountable, and that would be lost under this.
Congressman, thank you for all the hard work that you've done for talk radio and keeping freedom of speech alive on that, and Dan as well, same to you. Thanks. Coming up.